Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, finest Astro. This is Battlefield 1. In today's weapon review, we're going to be taking a closer look at the Farquhar-Hill self-loading rifle for the medic class introduced newly in the Turning Tides DLC. As per usual for these weapon reviews, we're going to be looking at the unlock requirements for all available variants of this weapon, the stats of the weapon in question, how this compares to the different available variants, as well as other weaponry available to the medic class or more generally infantry player in Battlefield 1, and last, but certainly not least, of course, we're also going to be talking about how to get the most out of this weapon when using it on the battlefield. Starting off then with the unlock requirements as we always do. In order to unlock the Storm variant, you're going to have to get 25 kills with the M1907 SL Trench variant specifically, as well as within one round 10 revives. Once you've completed that, in order to unlock the optical variant, you're going to have to get 25 headshot kills with the Farquhar-Hill Storm. Now while in game it says simply that you have to get 25 headshots with the Farquhar-Hill Storm, what this means is that the bullet that kills your enemy has to be a headshot in order for it to actually count towards this progression, meaning that it can actually take a little while to complete this aspect of the unlock for the optical variant of this weapon. In addition to this, you're going to have to get 20 squad orders, which is of course a much easier task to complete. Having then unlocked both weapons, let's start talking about the stats, specifically as baseline for today's video, the Storm variant, which comes, as the optical does of course as well, with a maximum damage of 42 and a minimum damage of 30, guaranteeing you a 3-shot body shot kill on a full health target out to 47 meters. This comes paired with a relatively low but not record low fire rate of 257 rounds per minute, a muzzle velocity very high even for the self-loading rifle class at 800 meters per second, as well as a very large magazine at 20 bullets, and a respectable but nevertheless on the longer side reload of 3 seconds for the short reload and 3.2 for the long reload. Moving over then to recoil, this weapon, given that it is a Storm preset, is of course relatively timid in this department, coming in with vertical recoil of 0.54 and horizontal recoil, that is to the left and right, of 0.18, with your usual first shot recoil multiplier found on self-loading rifles of 1. The sped attributes of this weapon are relatively standardized. That's with a base ADS of 0.18, that's while aimed down sight and not moving, an ADS while moving of 1.02, and hipfire while standing and moving at 3. This weapon comes with a spread increase per shot, typical for a Storm variant of 0.2, and overall, looking at its spread decrease per second, and of course spread increase, means that you can fire this variant of the weapon at a maximum fire rate while maintaining minimum spread of about 199 to 200 rounds per minute. This is the fire rate at which you can maintain the weapon's minimum spread while firing at the highest possible fire rate to do so. Having talked about the Storm variant of this weapon then, how does it compare to the other available variant, the optical variant of the Farquhar-Hill? Now the first and likely most obvious difference is obviously going to be the optic. While the Farquhar-Hill optical comes with an optical preset and thus an optical sight, the Storm variant of the Farquhar-Hill comes with iron sights. Which of the two you prefer, specifically in the case of a lower recoil SLR as this one is, even the optical variant, is really up to your personal preference. What the optical does bring, however, over the Storm variant is of course higher recoil. So whereas the Storm, as previously mentioned, comes in with vertical recoil of 0.54 and horizontal recoil, that is to the left and right, of 0.18, the optical variant has a bit more kick to it, especially in the vertical department where it sports 0.9 degrees of recoil per shot and 0.3 degrees of recoil horizontal to the left and right. What the optical does, however, offer as advantage over the Storm is its accuracy. Already when it comes to base ADS, the optical is better off than the Storm, with a minimum spread value while aiming down sight and not moving of 0.135 versus the 0.18 of the Farquhar-Hill Storm, and while aiming down sight and moving, the optical sports a value of 0.765, more accurate of course than the 1.02 of the Storm variant. In addition to this, the optical sports lower spread increase per shot and higher spread decrease per second, meaning that while the Storm variant shoots at a maximum fire rate while maintaining minimum spread of around about 199 to 200 rounds per minute, the optical variant can push this up to 224, 225 rounds per minute while maintaining its minimum spread. Its minimum spread, of course, being lower, thus the weapon being more accurate than the Storm variant minimum spread. That's pretty much it, however, when it comes to the differences. Essentially, spread model, recoil, and of course the optic. Which of the two you prefer really is down to what you struggle with most. Is it spread that you find yourself getting in the way, or do you not like iron sights? Likely the optical variant is the better choice. If you're somebody who struggles with recoil, and in the case of this weapon, the only really recoil that's going to seriously get in your way, in my personal experience, is the vertical recoil, maybe the storm variant is better for you. Other than that, really, if you have no trouble with the recoil and you have no trouble with using an optic on an SLR versus iron sights, then the optical is the better choice, especially for medium long range, where this weapon is better situated than, of course, more close quarter engagements. And this is where we can start talking about where this weapon really fits in when we look at the SLR picture or weaponry in Battlefield 1 generally, because it's clearly not really a close quarter weapon, not at least from the damage output, with a time to kill even at 2 meters, basically point blank range of already almost 470 milliseconds, close to half a second. This weapon clearly can't put out the damage it needs to compete with other close quarter focused SLRs or close quarter focused support LMGs, or of course shotguns and SMGs. Thus, it's relegated more to medium long range. At long range, you face a problem with this weapon that it comes in at a 4-shot kill, unlike some of the other competitors within the medic class, such as the Mondragon, which comes in an optical storm and sniper variant, which comes in at the same fire rate but sports a consistent all-range 3-shot kill on target. While this isn't a comparison to the Mondragon, it should be noted here that the Mondragon essentially is very similar to this weapon, simply however has more recoil, a slower reload mechanism, and a lower magazine count. Maintaining our focus however on the Farquhar-Hill here, the sweet spot for this weapon essentially is between where close quarter SLRs stop being effective and where long range SLRs start being effective. And in the case of this weapon specifically, this means say from about 20, 25, 30 meters up until about 47 meters, where this weapon slips up from a 3 to 4 shot kill. That's not to say that you can't kill people at long range with this weapon, absolutely not. With a muzzle velocity of 800 meters per second, this weapon performs quite well. The simple fact of the matter, however, is that you will not be having the best gun for that situation. What that of course doesn't take into account, and this is likely why many people will choose to run this weapon nevertheless, is that this weapon has a much higher magazine size than many of the weapons we are comparing it to right now, especially when you take into account how much damage it can put out. Comparing it once more to that Mondragon, Sniper Storm, or optical variant, while the Mondragon is essentially better or identical to this weapon in every aspect, the magazine count does make a difference to some people. Having to consistently reload, having only 10 shots available to you as player, means that most players will only be able to squeeze out about 2, maximum 3 kills per magazine. When you have 20 shots available to you, like you do with the Farquhar-Hill, flanking entire groups of enemies, unless of course they notice you, is a much more feasible option because you simply have the ammunition to chew really through an entire squad. My personal verdict on this weapon is, I personally am not going to use it. I'm quite familiar, quite competent with weapons like the Zebslaughter 1906 for my longer range, or outloading a 3.5, which shares pretty much the same ideal engagement distance as this weapon, but is able to put out more damage, but of course requires higher accuracy. But this weapon isn't necessarily directed towards somebody like me. It's directed to those who don't necessarily want to have to try hard every engagement or focus on maintaining one-on-ones. It's more focused on players who want a relatively consistent, solid hitting weapon that will perform at least decently at more or less any range you can chuck at it, without having to think too much about whether or not you've already run out of bullets or not. That being said, I'd like to know your opinion on the Farquhar, be that storm or optical variant. Leave those opinions as well as your usual video suggestions, of course, down below in the comments, or hit me up with them on Twitter. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 1 video.